You have like inverted. Oh, okay, it's so much less.
Just a little bit of rebranding.
Okay, wait, let me.
I don't know.
Does it look better on camera?
I am
if
not a
it's green?
controls member.
I don't know.
It doesn't. It's inverted colors.
If it's already yellow on the live stream, it's just gonna be like very vibrant
It's
green.
green on the live stream.
Okay, I am sending you the link.
Okay.
Can I look really quick?
Hold on, let me send myself the link first.
2 seconds. Let me make sure.
Can I send it to you on Slack?
Yeah.
No.
One game, and there's not that many girls teams for volley, so we're playing for university again, and we're gonna lose.
Why is it green? Who made it green? Wait, how is the audio? Is it? What are you doing?
The audio, I'm trying to figure out. Okay,
It
OBS.
should-
just
yeah,
use
OBS. Okay, it seems fine.
Oh, it's
Yeah, that's that thing.
Wait, let me turn on
Because my
feedback.
computer likes to overheat.
Okay.
I'm just scared that the audio and
It's so
wait,
blurry.
can you move it so
It's so blurry.
Don't worry about it.
no. What? Who made it green? I don't know. Okay.
Look, it looks fine zoomed out like this, right?
Yeah.
But then you look at it, like it looks fine like that.
Yeah.
When you look at it on OBS zoomed in more, it's like so blurry. I don't know what happens to it.
Okay, we're gonna get started then. It disappeared. We're depressed now. It's fine. Okay.
Are we going to?
Okay, so hi everyone, thanks for coming to our first fall workshop series on Charged Up. So we're basically this is the first presentation in our series. It's going to be mainly on Charged Up for new members to have a good idea of what the game's going to be and to just refresh how strategy is used in that context. Okay, so
Why is it green?
don't worry about it, it's fine. So, since some of you are from technical departments, strategy is very important in the competition section of FRC. We basically just create strategies for our games, and we are able to collect data on other teams so we can more effectively create accurate strategies to help us succeed in competition. So, yeah, I went through that. These are some of the people that are going to be presenting these over the series. So hopefully you'll be hearing from all of us today. It's just us. So if we want to go around the room and introduce ourselves, I'm Naomika. I'm strategy head for 3128.
Hi, I'm Isabel.
Hi, I'm Abraham. I'm a sophomore and I'm mid this year.
Hi, I'm Raider.
Hi, I'm Ben. Hi, I'm Justin.
No. Okay.
We're like this.
Maybe you should stand like closer.
You're not in the zoom out.
No, it should be in. It's just not like.
Oh, this
Live
is streamed away.
Okay, so the presentations that we'll be giving in the series are Charged Up, that's today. We're also going to be covering how we operate at competition, as in 3128. A design theory workshop geared towards technical members so they can see how strategy impacts the creation of the design of a robot. Scouting system, since we have a very developed scouting systems operation that we use at Com, and past games. So basically just a big overview of past games leading up to kickoff. And this will be going until December 9th. So check out the dates check out the specific dates if you want to attend those as well. Okay, so today we're going to be going through the overview of Charged Up, some important rules in the game, robot archetypes, and some strategies that we can use based off of that.
What is Charged Up? So I'm sure that most of you already know what FIRST is, but FIRST is a non-profit organization that hosts a robotics competition every year for youth. We are participating in FRC, which is the first robotics competition. The game changes each year and is released on the first Saturday every year. The first is a 6-week build season, and then there's a 6-week competition season that starts the first week of March. And then this is the video for Charge Up.
Welcome to the 2023 First Robotics Competition game, Charged Up, presented by Haas. Two alliances of 3 teams each compete to score cubes and cones into their grid to charge up their community. The alliances earn additional points if their robots are docked to or engaged with their charge station. Robots start each match in their community and may be preloaded with either 1 cube or 1 cone. Each alliance may choose where to stage 4 additional game pieces. During the first 15 seconds of the match, robots are autonomous. Without guidance from their drivers, robots score preloaded game pieces, collect and score additional game pieces, and are docked to or engaged with their charge station. Charge station points earned during auto count towards a potential activation bonus. The grid has nodes specific to cones and cubes, and some where either a cone or cube can be scored. During the remaining 2 minutes and 15 seconds, drivers control their robots. Robots continue to collect cubes and cones from human players at their substations to deliver power to the grids in their community. Each community contains 3 grids. The center grid is the cooperation grid. A link is a line of 3 game pieces scored on the same row. Completing enough links earns the alliance a sustainability bonus. If each alliance scores at least 3 game pieces in the cooperation grid, the sustainability bonus threshold is lowered for both alliances. Robots are protected within their community and loading zones. As time runs out, robots race to their charge stations. Alliances earn points for each robot docked to or engaged with the charge station. Earning enough charge station points earns the alliance the activation bonus. The alliance that earns the most points wins the match.
So the video went over most of this, but I'll just summarize it really quickly. Charged Up is the FRC game of 2023. In this game, alliances will collect cones and cubes and score them in the community. They're placed on grids, and they can be intake from the ground or human substations. If you score low, it's 2 points. Mid is 3 points, and if you score high, it's 5 points. In the end game, teams will go to their docking station and engage with it. In auto, last 15 seconds, teleop is a minute 45, and end game is 30 seconds. Another way to score points in this game are links. They're scored by scoring 3 game pieces in a row. And then to get ranking points in this game, you can get at least 5 links, at least 26 points on charge stations that can be earned in auto or end game. And then if you tie, you get 1. If you win, you get 2. And if you lose, you get 0.
But for off seasons, we're using Chessy rules, in which case you need 6 links to get a ranking point instead of just 5.
Okay, so competition structure. So typically our competition is broken into 4 days, and day 1 we have load-in and qualification schedule announcement. So first, the mech and controls department usually, they get checked in and they check over like everything and make sure everything is like working properly. And then next they set up our mini workshop or like our pit. And then at night we wait for the qualification match schedule to get released so we can review that. And then for day 2 we have practice matches where we like test out our robot and see how it's doing. And our drivers meeting also takes place for a drive team to discuss anything they need to cover. And then we also do pit scouting just to like analyze how we might compete against other robots. So for day 3, we have qualification matches, which is like the actual matches. They take place and we try to earn as many ranking points as possible so we can seed as high as possible. And then for day 4, we finish qualification matches, and then usually that's by midday, and then we pick alliances based off of our like placement or like seeding. And then after that, the 8 alliances go to the double elimination bracket, which is over there, and we compete.
so this is a video that you're gonna see at basically every FRC competition ever that you go to. It's just detailing how line selection works.
The top 8 teams move into the team captain positions of the playoff alliances. The number 1 team can select any team at the event to join their alliance. If the selected team declines the invitation, then another team is chosen until one accepts. Suppose Alliance 2 selects Alliance 4, but Alliance 4 declines, then Alliance 2 selects another team which accepts. It's now Alliance 3's turn, but the same rule applies. Alliance 4 is not available, so Alliance 3 has to select another team from the available pool. And the next alliance can select any available team that hasn't declined an invitation. This process continues through Alliance 8. Notice that a previously unavailable team has become an alliance captain. At this point, any remaining team that has declined an invitation is not eligible to participate in the playoffs because they can't be selected. Alliance 8 now picks their 3rd team member from the remaining available teams. Alliance 7 picks their 3rd team member, and so on, all the way back to the number 1 alliance. All alliances are now full, so alliance selection is complete. But the next several teams need to be prepared to serve as backup teams if one of the selected teams can no longer compete. Listen for an announcement for how many teams will be asked to serve as backups. And be sure to let the head referee know if your team accepts that responsibility. Let's start our alliance selection.
So I'm just going to quickly recap what occurs. Once again, you saw the first 8 seeds, 1 through 8, all become alliance captains, and it's a snake ladder draft. So 1 goes first, 2 goes, 3 goes, all the way down to alliance captain 8, and then after they all get their first pick, it goes to alliance captain. Alliance captain 8 gets their 2nd pick in a round, and then it goes back up to the first one. So, as alliance captains, you can select other alliance captains, and often you end up with alliance captain 1 selecting alliance captain 2 because they are the 1 and 2 seeds. It doesn't always occur, but it occurs quite often since they are usually the best. And what happens is, since there's an empty alliance spot, or alliance captain spot, everyone in that alliance captain moves up, as you saw, and a captain that's not on the list, so let's say 9, becomes an alliance captain when they previously weren't. Now, you can either accept or deny the invitation, as you saw, but if you deny it, you cannot be selected by another team, so you're off limits. Usually what happens is, if you're an alliance captain, and you deny, you'll be fine because you'll be an alliance captain. But if you deny and it goes past the first round and you're not an alliance captain, you are completely out of it. You cannot be selected at all. And you can only be selected afterwards in the reserves, which is the 3rd pick. And generally, if you deny as alliance usually it's more so the alliance captains that deny getting picked, although it's quite unorthodox since it's usually a higher team selecting you. But if you're an alliance captain and you get selected and you deny, nothing will really happen. You'll just stay as an alliance captain. But if you deny as, let's say, the 20th pick, then you'll probably just end up as reserve. If you deny as a 10th or 11th pick, you might end up as an alliance captain, though.
And this year we introduced 3rd picks at some of our regionals. So basically, because of double elims, each team got another pick. This 4th robot was not always used, but it could have some strategic benefits if you pick a robot archetype, which we're going to talk about later. That's different from other teams on your alliance, and you can swap them in for another match during playoffs. So before we get into important rules, does anyone have any questions about how charged up is played?
How come, like, last time I think it was Chris that was explaining, I don't remember, but she was, like, explaining that, like, in the video it said there would be the backup robots, but before I think she said that if, like, you weren't selected, you just go home, like, you can't play anymore, but how come here it's, like, you can be, like, a backup robot?
There are reserve robots, so it's not like you're not picked for playoffs, you just go home. like if you choose to be, you can be a reserve. And then if any robot breaks in playoffs, which inevitably will happen, there's a chance you could be subbed in.
Wait, why would a team deny an alliance?
So there's something that's called scorching that we can talk about a little bit later. But basically, if rankings get really skewed, you might have a first pick or a first seed that's not very representative of their ability, in that they might not, ability-wise, be rank 1 in the competition. Maybe they're like pretty bad. So if they pick like the second seed and they deny, third seed they deny, so on and so forth, until they get a robot that accepts, that's gonna screw up rankings a little bit, and that's an instance in which case you would deny like a certain number of seeds. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, we're gonna move on to rules. So here's the game manual for Charged Up. There's a game manual that's released in January along with every game that first releases. It has important information about how the game works, details of the game's rules. This includes robot rules like frame perimeter, all of that good stuff. Notes about scoring, and some important information that you can get out of this 160-page document is its table of contents, because that just makes navigation easier. Information about the game specifically, so it's basic summary, maybe a picture of the game field, the game elements, dimensions and stuff if you're a technical department. Setup, so that's again just game pieces, and scoring, and penalties. So penalties will go along with the rules, which will be usually at the end of the document, and we'll talk about the rules more in depth later. But this is basically just your fouls, red cards, yellow cards, and what you can do to game one.
So these are technical rules. These are basically rules that you should follow when you're making a robot. So first of all, it can't exceed 125 pounds, has a max frame parameter of 120 inches, and a max height of 4 feet 6 inches. Robots can extend more than 40 inches beyond their frame parameter, and you can't throw game elements into the field as an HB.
Okay, so here are some strategy rules. So for strategy rules, it's more focused on like what you can do in a match and like what things the robot can or cannot do when it's playing. So some of the things is, one, you can't manipulate one piece. Wait. Yeah, you can't manipulate more than one piece outside of your community. You can launch game pieces in your zone, which is interesting. You're able to pin robots for 5 seconds, which is very useful for defense because it basically means that that other robot cannot move for that 5 seconds. And then there are penalty zones, which are like the blue and the red zones, and these are where the robots, like the other team robot, cannot go in and touch your team's robot. And point values for scoring, links, ranking points, docking, and moving. These are all part of what we look at from strategy.
Okay, so there are various types of penalties, and these are some of them. So first we have like a foul, which is just 5 points for the opponents. And some examples of this would be like overextending or like pinning robots for longer than you're allowed to. You could get a tech foul, which is 12 points to the opponent. And an example of this would be like repeating a regular foul or scoring a game piece by doing a foul. And then a yellow card, which is like a warning for a robot or team's behavior, like especially if it's like bad or pretty bad. They'll get like 2, and then if you get 2 yellow cards, you get like a red card. An example of this would be like stepping over the field's walls instead of using the pathways that are on the sides of the field, or violating one like other kind of rule. And then there's a red card, which you can get for like being very bad. Usually it's like if you're maybe like yelling at a ref or doing something similarly as bad. Or if you violate 2 rules, which is like a yellow card, 2 yellow cards, or knocking another robot over. And then you can review some more like of these penalties by going through pages 52 and 73 in the game manual.
And then here are some of the more commonly broken rules. There's mainly 3 of them. One of them is to not extend into other robots, which is also a foul. The second one is no extension into safe zones, which can result in a tech foul or just a normal foul. And then one of the bigger ones is not to tip over other robots. This results in a tech foul, but if the other robot is permanently disabled, you could get a red card for this. And if you get red carded during the qualification matches, you just don't get ranking points. But if you get red card during eliminations, then your score is set to 0 and you automatically lose the game.
Anyone have any questions about rules? Okay, we're gonna go on to strategies used then.
Okay, so Thunderdome and defense. So in FRC, defense is a very big thing for strategy. So the Thunderdome, for Charged Up specifically, was where a lot of defense happened because there are robots from the community going to the loading zone and back from both directions. So there's a lot of traffic in those areas. And so when you're making a strategy, you mainly focus on this zone because there will be no robots to defend here. Yeah. However, defense this year was not as much as other years because of how many protected zones there were. Like for example, in Rapid React, you could ram into robots anywhere because of how less protected zones there were. Okay, so cycles. Cycles are the route that the robot takes to score a game piece. And for example, in Charged Up, the cycle would be going from the community to the loading zone and coming back to the community. A lot of mostly all the teams did this, and sometimes they would pick up the remaining pieces from auto from the starting line. But this is the main cycle that people use to score points in Charged Up.
So here are some strategies that are very vague and very basic for use in both quals and playoffs. So in quals, your main target is to get ranking points. You can do this by obviously gaining enough points to win, but also completing those objectives, like getting enough points in the charging station and getting enough links. So in quals, generally 3128 just prioritized ranking points to get our seat higher. Basically the ways we did this was determining which cycles of ours were faster. So generally because we had a cube intake that could easily spit out cubes, we just spammed low cycles because that was the fastest and the easiest way to get as many links as possible, the faster. So, but in general, this depends on your robot archetype, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. So if you have some kind of cube intake like that, low cycles are going to be faster probably than trying to score up high. But if your robot archetype is different, high cycles might be faster, or mid cycles would be faster. It just depends on your robot archetype. So you also don't want to brush over endgame points because of that ranking point that we talked about earlier, and maybe this would cause you to take more time to focus on climbing at the end, or maybe have an auto or run an auto with an engage or dock in auto. Yeah. So an example of a team that would do this kind of qual strat was 1923, that basically only was able to do low cycles. So because of that, they were really fast at it. So as long as they spammed low cycles, they could get 3 links done with and let their alliance partners try to fill in the rest. And that proved to be a pretty successful strategy for them, given their robot archetype. But in playoffs, this changes because we don't really care about ranking points anymore, we just care about points. So we want to score as many of them as possible. This could result in, if your robot allows, trying to score higher more often than low links because they're worth more, and maybe they're a bit more worth your time. So you might also go for a high scoring auto, maybe doing a one piece that's up high, or again climbing because climbing is worth a lot of points. Okay, so now we're going to talk about robot archetypes that we've referenced throughout the presentation so far.
So this one we call sponsored by NASA. It's one of the more advanced robot archetypes because it did the best during the competition. They can score cubes and cones. They have low center of gravity, so they're short and hard to be tipped over. They can do ground and substation intake, which allows them to be versatile of where they want to pick things up from. They have a tilted elevator intake, or tilted elevator scoring, which allows them to extend vertically. to score in all the different scoring areas. This type of robot was really fast and it was able to swerve, giving them good mobility. This gave them a more aggressive scoring bot kind of play style. They were also really good during their autonomous period with the 2-piece auto and plus the docking, and they were really fast at docking. And then one example of this would be Team 4414, which we talked about earlier.
When you're launching a new product with a tight deadline,
For reference, this team won Einstein's this year.
We're just gonna keep it muted because that's loud. So you can see they have a really low center of gravity and are able to manipulate both cubes and cones. Because they use a swerve, which makes them very efficient and have very fluid cycles. So that obviously helps with getting more cycles in. So that's the end of auto, and you can see they navigate the field very smoothly because of their swerve, and they go for those leftover game pieces in the middle of the field for auto, which, again, very quick cycles. And they use a tilted elevator. It goes horizontally instead of having to go vertically and then horizontally. So that also saves a bit of time and contributes to their low center of gravity.
So, for reference, we did not name this, but we'll call it the Pikachu bot, 1323. Their robot had a really fast cycle time, so they could move very fast from loading station back to the community area, and then a very fast auto similar to High Tide, where they could score 2-piece auto plus a dock. And then, so not only that, but accuracy is a big part of this, because if you're not actually putting it on, because it's not exactly easy to put a cone onto a high pole. And so they had a very accurate way of scoring these. As you saw, High Tide dropped one of them in auto. So they also had a ground and substation intake, which means that leftover pieces on the ground in the middle and the substation, they could take up from both of them and score. And they had a really good reach due to a stretching out arm. And this year they didn't exactly have a con. They could play good counter defense. They could defend really well, and but they usually didn't defend since they were one of the fastest cyclers, so it would be better for them to do pure score.
Okay, so you can see this robot is particularly massive because that's a trademark of 1323. They always make really large robots, and because of that, they're really not susceptible to defense whatsoever. They can just go and not be pushed over because they're that massive. You can see they don't use a tilted elevator, but something of the sort. And they have a low cube intake or a game piece intake that can expedite their cycles once more. Again, swerve drive makes them very fluid in traveling across the field.
So some robot archetypes you might find are robots that not necessarily can do everything, but one thing, they're just really good at that one thing. In this example, it's a cube robot. Basically, only pick up cubes, but they can score them at any level. They execute from the ground and human substations, and they'll be a fast sort of drive and very accurate because it only has to focus on cubes. And this may lead to some strategies. If you're a really good cube bot, you don't really want to pick into an alliance that also has a really good cube bot. Maybe you want to pick into an alliance that has a really good cone bot, for example. And one example was 1923.
Yeah, so 1923 wasn't able to score cubes at all levels. Let me find them. They're over there. But because they were so experienced with dealing with cubes, they were able to, again, make a lot of wins. And they also use their cube mechanism to shoot them into the community, which expedited cycles again. Particularly in this game, as manipulating cones was something we haven't really seen before in FRC, a lot of teams felt more comfortable with doing cubes because they're so bulbous, they can basically just act as a ball. So some teams reuse their mechanisms from last year's game, which centered around balls.
Their their shooting mechanism is a great example of like abusing sort of, or not abusing, but using the rules to their advantage, because you may not be able to shoot outside of your zone, but once you're inside of your zone, you can shoot, and you can see them sometimes going up to their docking station and shooting a ball from the corner of that.
And because their robot was so compact, it was not very susceptible to defense at all. It had a very low center of gravity, which made it very successful.
Okay, the next robot, armed robot. So basically, this robot is like a double jointed arm, so it has pretty good mobility and movement with its like manipulator. And it also has a one-piece auto and dock, which is pretty solid and consistent. It has a high center of gravity, unfortunately, because it has like a big arm. But on the plus side, it does have a fast tank, and it's also a substation and ground intake type robot. It also can score cones and cubes, and the driver's kind of habits are to avoid other robots, so it usually avoids other defenders.
So this can apply to teams like 971 or 4738 that have a very successful double jointed arm, or teams like Paradox and other teams at SDR that just had one arm. And they're right there. You can see they're kind of tippy. Their center of gravity is considerably high compared to other robots that we've looked at. But this height also helps them intake from the human player station a bit faster. And also score higher a bit faster than other lower robots.
And then this one, which we call the Optimus Prime, the Autobot. It has a very solid defense and it has a consistent two-piece auto. They have quick cycles, but this also led to them having a slightly reckless driving habit due to their speed. They were accurate with scoring and used a tilted elevator similar to Team 4414. It had very good reach that was able to stretch and score.
And they are over here. So their elevator looks very similar to high tides, with a similar two-piece.
So this one we deemed the Avatar. So it is a one-piece low auto, which means it can only score one piece low, but it's a fast tank bot and it's a low cube score, so it goes fast and sort of since the lower is better for getting those links done, they put cubes in there because cones were harder to deal with, as Namika mentioned. And so it sort of takes these cubes and puts them in the low to get them those fast links. But often, these robots, since they have a low center of gravity and sort of score low only, they often find themselves playing defense because you can ruin the time for other robots that can score higher, score more points on average per cycle than you. And so blocking them would mean that even if you lose out on some points, your opponents lose out on even more points if you sort of block their way. And often we'll see this sort of archetype in the defensive bot that can collect pieces in the middle for teammates to pick up in the middle, because of course it's faster to go to the middle than all the way across the field to the loading station, to the substations. And while this may not be one of the more effective effective archetypes. It's a general reliable, good defensive bot. Once again, this year's game was not very defense based, but in past seasons like 2022 Rapid React, where there weren't many defense zones, this could be a very reliable bot since it can defend a bot for prolonged periods of time and not rack up many penalties.
And we are over here. Not bad. I think I picked the wrong match. But in general, they were a defensive kind of robot. And in general, not charged up particularly, but in general, FRC games, you want your second pick in your lines to be a defense bot. If you have two offensive bots that can score, it's generally helpful to have another defense bot, just to like make sure that the other two robots can score without having to care about other robots like impeding that. In Charged Up, it was found that 3 offensive bots were a bit better, just because this game was so reliant on scoring and because there are so many defensive or protected zones in this game, but that has run through for past FRC games. So before we go into our activity plus intermission, do you have any questions about Charged Up in general? Okay then, we have waffles, so we're gonna take like a 15-minute intermission and watch Chessy, which is going on, it's taking place in San Jose,